AFR On Demand is brought to you by Breck Golf. Try Beaver Creek today, just 20 minutes from downtown Baton Rouge in the Zachary area. They've got a PGA Tour driving range, a short game practice area, 30 to 40-yard practice shots. It's a great place to chip and putt and practice if you don't have time for a full round. Book your tee time today, golf.breck.org, golf.breck.org.
Matt Moscona.
I'm very important.
After further review.
Say it one more time.
After further review with Matt Moscona.
And here we go.
Live from the Raising Cane studio.
Let's ride!
And off we go. Welcome aboard. Glad you're with us. AFR, presented by Relief Windows. I'm Matt.
This is Shaq O'Neal, and I hate Matt.
Paul O'Neal.
They're chanting Paul O'Neal's name.
Muso. And Mr. Toby Tomplay. All right, we're here. Glad you are as well. Get out there and make it a good one. Saints Camp Eve. Ross Jackson will be here. Lance Moore will be here. Big Ten Media Days underway. Bill Bender will be here. A ton to do. Let's begin as we do every single day.
It's time to pop the top on another edition of AFR with Bud Light. Drink easy.
We are fresh off of SEC Football Media Days. The New Orleans Saints open training camp on Tuesday. LSU will open up fall camp in a week and a couple of days. So naturally, we will begin with baseball. And the fact that we're beginning with baseball tells you how big of a story this is, how rare of a story this is. You probably saw it over the weekend. LSU's top prospect from this most recent signing class is Logan Schmidt. He's a lefty who's 6'4" and throws 98. Okay? Big-time prospect. And nobody associated with LSU or Logan Schmidt or baseball at any level, nobody expected Logan Schmidt to be a college baseball player. Nobody. You take the commitment because he's a 6'4" lefty who throws 98, and you never know, just maybe. But you understand that guy's going to get drafted. He'll sign for $1 bajillion, and he'll never throw a single pitch in college baseball. But you take the commitment in case if something wackadoo happens. Well, something wackadoo happened. A little more background. So Schmidt just turned 18. Just turned 18. And he's 6'4" and throws 98. Upside. Even more upside than he already has, basically, is what you're seeing. MLB.com rated him as the number 45 prospect in this draft. Not high school pitchers, not left-handed pitchers, not college, and in college. Not high school players, number 45 overall, regardless of player, age, position, whatever. The number 45 prospect in this draft. There was no intention ever of Logan Schmidt ever coming to school. And the draft rolls around. And he slides out of round one, which is not uncommon. And you know how the draft works. We've talked about this so many times over the years. Team calls and says, hey, we're going to take you here. Would you accept X signing bonus? And if they say yes, they get picked. If not, the team moves on to the next prospect. For example, Derek Curiel was the slot value for Curiel was around $8 million. He signed for just over $6 million. That's because Pittsburgh called him and said, hey, we're going to take you here. Will you accept 6, which is below sign? Yeah, of course I will. Boom, done. You're a top 5 pick. Congratulations. So that's how it goes. Only it didn't go that way with Logan Schmidt. Cleveland picked Schmidt 59th overall, but they did not have a deal in place. They just blind drafted the best player available without a deal in place. Now, Cleveland's problem is they didn't have enough money in their bonus pool to sign Schmidt for the number he wanted. Now, we don't know that number publicly, but the maximum amount of money that Cleveland had available to sign Schmidt was $1.7 million. And he said no. On Sunday night, Schmidt put on social media, that he is not signing with the Cleveland Guardians. The deadline is literally right now. 6 minutes ago was the deadline, 4 Eastern. And Schmidt announced he's not taking Cleveland's offer. So now he's got really two options. One is he comes to school at LSU. And that may seem like an awesome option. It is a good option for a lot of players. You can come to LSU. You can play in front of great fans, against great competition, compete to go to a College World Series, make some NIL money, develop the same way that Paul Skeens and Kate Anderson and Anthony Irons and Engage Jump all did. And maybe in 3 years you make even more money in the draft because you're a top 10 pick and you're fast tracked toward the show like we saw with Gage Jump, like we're seeing right now with Kate Anderson. Like, all that's true. Paul Skeens, all that's true. It's also true that it's 3 years away. And for a guy who had no intention at all of stepping foot on the college campus 3 weeks ago, 3 years probably feels like an eternity, especially when you're 18 years old. That's like a fifth of your life. You know what I mean? So it's a really tough thing. The other option he has is you can go JUCO. You go to JUCO, play 1 year in JUCO, and re-enter the draft next summer. This is what Mac Marshall did. Brady Aiken did this, where they thought they'd go higher. They didn't. Instead of coming to LSU, they went JUCO, then entered the draft later. So if you come to school, there's always a risk. I just went through all the pros, the positives of coming to LSU. There's also the possibility he gets injured. There's also the possibility that he comes to school and doesn't pitch well. See Cam Johnson, the guy that passed on $3 million to come to LSU and is now floated around LSU, Oklahoma on his third school now, and we'll see what happens. I presume he didn't sign. I don't know if he signed. I guess he didn't. I don't know. But the point is, benefit of hindsight, Cam Johnson probably wishes he can go back 3 years and take $3 million. So Logan Schmidt is most likely. And look, I haven't talked to Logan Schmidt. I reached out to him, offered him the opportunity to come on the show. Would love to have him on. And the good news is he's listening to LSU, right? Every bit of information we were able to get this weekend is that he's at least listening. He hasn't completely closed the door. He's listening to what LSU has to say. Most likely, he's going to go JUCO. Like, if I had to put a percentage, I'd go 80-20 JUCO. But 3 weeks ago, I would have said 0.00000000001% LSU. 80-20 is a far way from 0.00001 LSU. You got a shot. And from my perspective, ain't nobody in the world I'd rather sitting on that dude's couch making the pitch than Jay Johnson. Literally, there is literally nobody else in college baseball I would want making that pitch to that kid to come to LSU. Nobody could do it better than Jay. So we'll see. But man, what a coup this would be. I mean, we were talking at the draft about all the left-handed arms. LSU did not get a lefty in the portal. I mean, you return Cooper Williams and Plog and Lockenmeyer, and Jonah Ase is a little bit of a wild card because he had Tommy John, didn't pitch last year. You get Lucas Naraki on campus. That was a coup. Lefty who throws 95, but 5'11", shorter guy, not as big a ceiling. Brady Cupid from West Monroe, strike thrower from the left side. Braxton Beatty also, he'll show up on campus, but that's 3 freshmen. So you got 4 returning guys that haven't really been super-duper contributors, and then 3 freshmen coming in. You didn't go add any lefties out of the portal. You have options. This would be a high-end, huge talent, high-ceiling type guy. And after you lost an elite arm in Marcos Paz, if you're able to add an elite arm in Logan Schmidt, that would feel like a one-for-one trade-off, maybe even a little better considering you're getting a lefty from the, throws 98. So as far as the timeline, really the only timeline in place is the start of the fall semester, which at LSU begins August 24th. So if you're so as to say, if you're Logan Schmidt, the only real timeline you had was today at 4 Eastern, Monday at 4 Eastern, to decide if you're signing with Cleveland or not. He announced Sunday he's not taking that offer, so now he's got about a month. He's got a month to make his decision. Is he going to go JUCO and enter the draft again next year, or is he going to come spend 3 years at LSU? Jay Johnson trying to do the almost unthinkable and get this elite level prospect, Logan Schmidt, the number one prospect in LSU's class, on the campus. The wild and wacky has already happened, which has opened the door to the possibility of Schmidt coming to campus. We will follow it to see if Jay can get it across the finish line. All right, it's after further review. Now we'll talk about football. Our show Open Every Day is brought to you by Bud Light. Drink easy with a great taste of Bud Light, the official beer of AFR, the official beer of your Fighting Tigers of LSU. By the way, you can find them in stores now, the officially licensed LSU bottles and cans, the 16-ounce bottles, the 12-ounce cans. Beautiful new design on this year's bottles and cans, so check them out at any great local retailer. And if you have your favorite watering hole, favorite restaurant, hanging out by the pool, last trip to the beach, whatever it may be, drink easy with the great taste of Bud Light, the official beer of AFR. Okay, Saints open up camp tomorrow. I have my what to watch. I want Ross Jackson to join us next. I'll throw out mine. I'll get his. We'll talk a little Saints camp preview next on AFR.
AFR.
GLO, glowresources.com, glowresources.com. Complete employer solutions, Glow Resources and glowresources.com. A hat tip to my buddy Jareth Knockan. Just about a week or so ago, a couple weeks ago, the Baton Rouge Business Report Top 100 came out. Top 100 private businesses in Baton Rouge. Glow Resources up yet again on that list, up 11% year over year. Just incredible to see the growth. And I'm so happy for Jareth and the folks at Glow. And home base is here in Baton Rouge. Their main office is on Perkins Road, right near Pennington, at the corner of Perkins and Quail Oak. By the way, if you ever get a chance, just pop in there and see their office. It's gorgeous. Go see it. But they serve businesses all over the country. Okay, so if you're listening or watching, online, YouTube, whatever, and you're outside of Baton Rouge, no worries. If you're looking for the right people, Glow Resources can help you. Check them out online at glowresources.com. Skilled blue-collar labor, any type of office job, you want Glow Resources. GLO, glowresources.com.
After further review, presented by Relief Windows. Windows, doors, siding, and we do shutters too.
Yeah, still working through the recovery process, and so I won't necessarily see him out there in the football elements, but he's done an awesome job.
Back at the end of May, Kellen Moore didn't have much to say about Kendre Miller. Will that change as the Saints get set to open up training camp? Tuesday, the Saints will hit the practice field as they get ready for year 2 under Kellen Moore. I know what I'm keeping an eye on throughout camp. We'll ask Ross Jackson the same. LouisianaSports.net and Locked On Saints. Good enough to hang out with us. Yo, man, how are you?
Hey, man, doing great. Glad to be here.
Kendre Miller, I know it's not the most important aspect of this team, but it's one of the most interesting to me considering what you have invested, a former third-round pick, and it looked like Ross last year. He was emerging. He was looking like the explosive guy we thought he could be coming out of TCU. The injury chops him down. Now you bring in H.N. They re-signed Kamara, a couple of young backs as well. Is Kendre Miller going to make this team?
Yeah, I mean, that's really what this training camp is going to be all about, right? He's going to a contract year here in 2026, and now he's got to prove again that he's going to be able to stay on the field, stay healthy, and continue to contribute. It's interesting, I think, and as you highlighted, the biggest question mark around Kendre is very rarely anything about his talent. It's always about whether or not that talent's going to be on the football field or not. So I really think that's what this all comes down to. I think training camp is going to be massive for him. Head coach Kellen Moore said last year that they were effectively starting off with him with a clean slate. Now it's a clean slate plus an ACL tear at this point, and that's going to be something he's got to show that he can come back from, maintain that explosion, and keep it going. I think if he's able to do that, there's a lot of reason to keep him around. He's an explosive rusher. He's hard to bring down. He can contribute on special teams for you as well. And so I think for all those reasons, he has the edge if he's able to stay on the field throughout training camp, but he's going to have some competition along the way. And, of course, the biggest competition is going to be his availability.
How many running backs do you think they keep, Ross?
I think they could probably keep 4. Look, this is a team that no longer utilizes a fullback, much to Hesser's dismay there. But, but because of that, it does give them the opportunity to be able to keep somebody around. And in the past, maybe that spot was kind of taken up by Taysom Hill, right? Last year when he returned back to the lineup and he was able to contribute to the run game. You don't have that here going into 2026. And while Tyler Shuck can run, you probably want to protect him as best as possible. And so I would imagine that keeping Travis Etienne Jr., keeping Alvin Kamara means that there could be a spot for 2 more running backs here.
Okay, I want to stay on the offensive side. We know, look, a year ago at this point, Ross, we didn't know who the quarterback was going to be. It was a Rattler-Shuck battle, and that ate up all of camp. I guess Hainer in there as well. But now we know it's Tyler Shuck's team, but the backup quarterback is unsettled, and you've got Rattler returning, but they went and added a young veteran in Zach Wilson. What should we know about that competition, or is it a competition?
Yeah, I think you got a little bit of a competition there. I think the thing that's super interesting about it is what are you looking for and what's going to be most valuable for the development of Tyler Shuck, and what can you get out of those two players that's going to be able to check those boxes. I do think, of course, the quarterback 2 spot is about who's the guy that could step in and start for you if you needed to, or who's the guy that can go in at even the end of a game and just is the best at handoffs, right, while you're trying to run the clock out, whatever it might be. There's those pieces of it, but I also think that the other big thing here that you're looking for is who's going to be the guy that Tyler Shuck goes to on the sideline and has conversations with, along with the offensive coordinator Doug Nussmeier and head coach Kellen Moore, and says, okay, what did you see? Because that's what a lot of the, you think about the Chase Daniels of the world, the Mark Brunells of the world, the Teddy Bridgewaters of the world, those guys that were great backup quarterbacks for New Orleans while Drew Brees was around. Those were guys that he could go off to the sideline with and have a conversation with. And so who's going to be that player? And so the value of what you're trying to weigh here is the institutional knowledge, which is where Spencer Rattler kind of has a little bit of the advantage there, being that he started multiple games in this system with head coach Kellen Moore just last year, or is the overall NFL experience of a guy like Zach Wilson more valuable? So it'll be interesting to see exactly what it is that they find most valuable out of those two things, in addition to the on-field performance, which of course will factor in. But I do think that the above-the-shoulders-ness of those two guys is going to be a big deciding factor.
Ross, could they keep them both considering the emergency quarterback on game day?
Yeah, that certainly maximizes things. You could even get, you could potentially even get one of those guys to the practice squad potentially. But the Hunter Deckers factor kind of has an impact there, I imagine. Kellen Moore and the Saints really like Hunter Deckers, like what, the development piece that he is. And so how he factors in as well turns that from a 2-person conversation to a 3-person conversation in terms of keeping that third quarterback either on the active roster or on the practice squad, but certainly a route that they can go with that emergency third quarterback rule.
At Ross Jackson NOLA is where you can get him. You can always read him for free at LouisianaSports.net. Listen or watch for free. Locked On Saints. One on defense, and I'll get a few maybe that you're keeping an eye on. I'm fascinated by this linebacker rotation because they keep adding young guys there, and they've obviously already seen Demario Davis out. And it makes me think, Ross, that when you look at the contract, this could be Pete Werner's last year in New Orleans. Are you seeing the same thing in this camp, that this feels really like an important month for Pete Werner?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's important for him. And I also think that there's the chance that it doesn't have a lot to do with what he does. It might really be all about what Danny Stutzman does. The stat that always keeps jumping out to me about Danny Stutzman in particular, and we're talking about kind of like keeping this linebacker room interesting. He's a player that certainly does that. He took just over 200 snaps last year, had 53 tackles. He had tackles on 26% of his defensive snaps, which is an insane frequency that, you go from 200 snaps to 600 snaps, you're probably not, sustaining that rate of playmaking. But you add on top of that a 5.4% missed tackle rate, just really reliable as a guy that can come in and make plays, and he made those plays at, just beyond, and behind the line of scrimmage throughout the season last year when he got his opportunities. And so depending on what his performance is, the battle might be a little one-sided, right? Because it might not become about what it is that Pete Werner does over the course of the training camp month, but what does Danny Stutzman do? And so I think it's equally important for both of those players. And then the Caden Ellis piece of it is super interesting too, because he has the ability to rush the passer. He has all of these incentives built into his contracts that start at 5 sacks and continue to progress from there. And so when he is down at the line of scrimmage, for instance, as opposed to dropping back in coverage, is there an opportunity maybe to have 2 linebackers on the field with him as opposed to 1 linebacker in those coverage downs? And so that becomes a really interesting piece to it as well. When they decide to treat Caden Ellis like an edge rusher, how that maybe maximizes opportunities for both Pete Werner and Danny Stutzman. You
also were right to point out late last season at the opportunities that a guy like Isaiah Stallberg got. And then there's also Jalen Ford. Are those guys that potentially make this team? I'm just thinking numbers there at linebacker.
Yeah, I mean, look, they've got 6 linebackers. Keeping 5 isn't on the active roster isn't out of the ordinary, right? Because you want a couple of guys that are also going to be able to contribute on special teams. You'd probably like to, not have Caden Ellis running down the field on kick coverage, right? You'd like to keep him reserved for what you're doing defensively. And so having guys like Isaiah Stallbird as well as Jalen Ford that can both provide you depth at the position, but also get after, returners and covering the punt game, covering the kick game. Isaiah Stallbird, rushing punters in some cases. There's a lot of, opportunities to be able to keep those guys involved there. And so the only person that ends up being the odd man out at the position is Jackson Sermon, who the Saints signed late this offseason. He's the son of Saints linebacker coach Peter Sermon, but he also has a quick way and quick path to the practice squad as a potential, additional body there, a guy that could get elevated throughout the season, things like that. And so really, like the Saints have 6 linebackers, and it's unless they continue to add more options, it would not be surprising at all to see all 6 of them involved in the overall roster, which includes the active roster and the practice squad going into 2026.
Ross, what are position battles or players are you keeping an eye on when they hit the practice field tomorrow?
Yeah, well, the number one number that I'm looking for when I get out on the practice field is going to be number 0. Where's Jordan Tyson, and how much is he doing? Are the Saints finally letting him go out there and, be a part of team drills and be involved in all these other things, or do we continue to see a little bit of a ramp up? Because he wasn't involved in off-season practices, a little bit of a ramp up wouldn't be massively surprising. And of course, there's reporting days, and then there's also the actual practice day. And so we'll see how quickly he's able to get involved. But that'll be number 1. The other thing that I'm super interested in is the competition, or really just how everything unfolds in the interior defensive line. Devon Godshaw, Brian Brzee are guys that sit at the top of the depth chart, but what happens behind those guys? Christian Miller, drafted in the 2nd round this year. He started to get involved towards the end of mandatory minicamp. Now he has his opportunity to be out on the field here as training camp gets started. Vernon Broughton making his return from injury, all that. It's going to be very interesting to me to see how that position group plays out. And then, of course, the kicker competition. The Saints had the worst field goal percentage in the NFL last year, even after getting a boost when they switched over from Blake Grupe over to Charlie Smith. Now they've got Charlie Smith and Tanner Brown, who was 25 of 28 last year in the UFL and was 4 of 4 in the postseason, including 3 kicks that he made from 60 yards or more. There's a real competition to be had there now when it comes to kicker. And I know it's not the sexiest position in the world, but it could be the difference between wins and losses for this team next year.
Sure. A couple of quick follow-ups. I don't know if you've put pen to paper on this yet, but typically, Ross, they go to camp, and there's like a certain number of guys that are going to have a spot no matter what. Like we know Shuck, and I mean, obviously your tackles and Edwards. I mean, you do go down the list on both sides. As best you can tell, how many roster spots are actually up for grabs? Like of the 53, how many are locked in? How many are up for grabs?
Yeah, that's a really, really good observation and good insight, because it's interesting. There aren't many. I'd be hard pressed to put a number on it right now, just off the top of my head. But the fact of the matter is that you're probably looking at 10 or less, right? Like,
sure.
There's not a lot of roster spots that are specifically open, because there's not a lot of. You think about the starters on either side of the football. There's not a lot of moves to be made there, and not a lot of jostling to be made there. That's 22 down. You already have most of your specialists in the building, so you're at least at 24 or 25, and then beyond that, you kind of know how the depth builds out. For instance, at wide receiver, maybe you'll see a little bit more jostling, but you also have 3 draft picks there, and you kind of expect all 3 of the draft picks to make the roster, and so that maybe leaves 1 spot open potentially at wide receiver. And so for the most part, I mean, you're looking at all these positions across the board for New Orleans. The starter and kind of the primary backup or primary set of backups is almost all set, and then the rest of the positions that might be kind of, that you can compete for might be, I don't want to call them open, but attainable, I guess. You're looking at like the bottom of the cornerback room, the bottom of the safety room, the bottom of the wide receiver room, some jostling at the bottom of the offensive line. And that's kind of where you're looking at all of this to happen. So not a lot available for players that are looking to make an active roster here in New Orleans. And so it's going to be big for them in terms of putting some tape up during preseason, because they're auditioning for 31 other teams as well. And then, of course, opportunities on the practice squad.
Last thing, I wanted to ask one follow-up on the interior of the defensive line. And you brought up veterans like Gottschall and Brzee, and then you've got Vernon Broughton coming off of injury. You bring in Christian Miller. They got enough spots for all these guys?
Yeah, no, I don't think that they do. It's going to be very interesting to see how this area of the roster plays out. Gottschall's coming in as a guy that, helped this team on at least develop itself as a run defense on a per snap basis and was able to help contribute in the early downs, first and second. But does he end up getting pushed by one of these young guys that can be an early down player, meaning that they're really good against the run, but then also adds value as a third down pass rusher on the interior as well in a way that he maybe doesn't? I mean, this is a guy that doesn't practice on third down day, for instance, and usually has a limited day during those days. So do you start to look at that as the Saints as like, okay, yeah, I have this player that's really, really good in these first and second downs, but I also have this player that's really, really good first, second, and third down. So do I want to invest more of a roster spot in that player instead? And so there'll be some interesting kind of negotiations to be had about what the interior of the defensive line looks like, which now extends out to sort of those 3-4 defensive ends, not just the nose tackles, to see exactly how the formation of that room is going to look. I think that's going to be one of the more hardest to predict rooms in the for the roster construction purposes, at least going into camp. And then obviously we'll get some more clarity as camp goes on. You
will get the most comprehensive practice reports anywhere absolutely free at LouisianaSports.net. I know because I edited a lot of them with Ross. No, but do not apologize, please. And, of course, always free at LouisianaSports.net and then Locked On Saints. He's at Ross Jackson Nola. Thanks, dude. We appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Back at you. Take care. Stay safe. Talk to you soon.
All right, man. It's after further review. It's getting cranked up. Saints camp tomorrow. Make sure you're following Ross's coverage. We're brought to you by Arco Power Systems. Should I do it?
I mean, yeah, of course.
All right. We're brought to you by Arco Power Systems. ARCCO. 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 And Arco is their name. Oh. No one over there has yet been ticked at me for doing it.
This is great.
Great. That's such a liberal use of the term great.
You remember it.
Memorable, one thing. Great, just because it's memorable doesn't mean it's great. Barbie Girl by Aqua. Memorable, not great.
Yeah, I mean.
Oh, really?
A lot of people ask about it.
No, because it's memorable.
But that's the thing. It's a conversation starter.
It doesn't mean the song is great.
Oh, the song's horrible.
That's the point.
The song's terrible.
That's the point. Oh, it kind of sounded like you just were kind of down with it.
I mean,
like that song.
The bits worked out pretty well.
It has worked out really well. ARCCO, 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 and Arco is their name. Arco Power Systems, industrial. What they do actually is very serious. Industrial Generac generator power. These are standby generators for your business, industrial facility. Everything's turnkey. They'll sell, service, install. Rent your industrial Generac generators. Check them out at arco.com, arco.com, arco.com. Okay, let's knock out a quick break. Come back, go around the SEC. Did you hear what Urban Meyer had to say as Big Ten Media Days kicks off? A little response to the convo last week about the SEC breaking away from college football. You hear it next. It's AFR.
AFR.
Big shout out and a thank you to our partners over at RevFiber.com, RevFiber.com, RevFiber.com. Rev was one of the presenting sponsors of our coverage all last week at SEC Football Media Days, and we're so grateful because weeks like that and us bringing you that coverage isn't possible without Relief Windows, without Rev Fiber. So we're so grateful to Rev for being our partners there last week. And to remind you that if you are, well, who isn't? So, like, if you're looking for high-speed internet, like, who isn't? Of course. But at Rev Fiber, you're talking about speeds up to 5 gigs, so lightning-fast speeds, and backed by the security of an all-fiber network. So the cables are buried under the ground. If you're curious to see if Rev has laid fiber in your area, go to the website, revfiber.com, revfiber.com. You get a better price, great local customer service. It's Rev Fiber. For your home or your business, R-E-V, revfiber.com, revfiber.com. Love telling you about our friends at River Parish Contractors. Do amazing work and have for years. At River Parish Contractors, execution is more than just completing the project. It's delivering safe, predictable results through experienced leadership, skilled craftsmanship, disciplined project management. Today, River Parish Contractors is a full-service industrial construction company with more than 500 employees, dedicated estimating, project management, safety, quality organizations in a 32,000 square foot automated pipe and structural steel fabrication facility. It's incredible. Their capabilities for maintenance, turnarounds, capital projects, civil construction, pipe fabrication, structural steel fabrication. They do it all. They do it better than anyone. It's River Parish Contractors. rpcontractors.com. rpcontractors.com.
After further review, presented by Relief Windows. Windows, doors, siding, and we do shutters too.
A week ago, Greg Sankey, during his State of the Conference address to Open SEC Media Days, was asked about the possibility, if the conversations around the SEC breaking away and operating independently were real. And he answered it in a way so to say, yes, the conversations are real, as if to say, yes, they've really happened. And he preferred that they remain behind closed doors or on Zoom calls. But it's really been the Georgia contingent, Kirby and Georgia leadership, that has brought those to light, where Kirby has said, yeah, like if they can't reach an agreement, that they would break away. And what the way I've explained it is, it's not that dissimilar actually from, 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, when then Commissioner Mike Slive went to SEC Media Days and saber-rattled about the cost of attendance. Do you remember that? If you don't, it's okay. But effectively, the power schools wanted the NCAA to allow cost of attendance, meaning whatever gap existed, so like scholarship, room and board, all that stuff, whatever the full cost of attendance was, they wanted to be able to fill that gap. So they could pay the student-athletes a stipend to fill that gap for snacks and food or whatever the case may be. It wasn't a lot of money, maybe $1,000, $2,000 a semester, something like that. And not every FBS school could afford that. Well, the SEC and the Big Ten, the power ones could. And so what they basically said was, you're not going to dictate terms to us. Like, we don't care if Nevada can't. We can. So don't tell us we can't do it because Nevada and Fresno and Ohio U and Monroe can't do it. Or we're going to have a problem. So fall in line, or we're just going to go do our own thing. So it's been the trump card that the power conferences, in particular the SEC and Big Ten schools, have held forever. And they're using it here again because they're not going to allow the tail to wag the dog. They're not going to say, well, if we want these provisions, but the Big Ten and the SEC want these provisions, but the ACC and the Big 12 and the new Pac-12 and the Mountain West and the American, they don't. Well, they got numbers, but in this case, the sum of the parts, meaning the SEC and the Big Ten, is greater than the whole of all the other leagues. So you can tell us you don't want to do this, but if you all vote against us, we'll just go do our own thing. And that means the rest of you collapse and everybody knows it. Well, that's the whole impetus behind the breakaway conversation. Urban Meyer, on his podcast, The Triple Option, sort of responded to those comments.
My feeling when I heard Greg Sankey say this is not new. This has been around, I'd say, minimum of 2 years, that you've heard the possibility of, could they leave the NCAA? I would say the probability of the SEC leaving solo is 0.0. Is a reality that the Big Ten and SEC have had conversation about going on their own? And the answer is yes. That's the two super leagues. They would obviously get more teams involved. College sports, as we know, would change dramatically, yet it would be a financial windfall for those two conferences.
Is it what you would want as a college football fan?
No, of course not.
Now, I have said here for years, I mean, one of the great things about this era, everything's recorded, said this literally since the summer of 2011. When the first giant seismic realignment happened, when A&M and Missouri came into the SEC and Nebraska and Rutgers and Maryland went to the Big Ten and all that sort of stuff. Arizona State, Colorado, Utah went to the Pac-12 at the time, whatever. I have been historically correct about this. It was one thing that was just very easy to follow the money. It's a very easy thing to see for me. And in my lifetime, I said this 14 years ago, and I still believe it to 15 years ago. I still believe it today. In my lifetime, we will see a world where college football operates independent of the NCAA. It's just college football. And it's going to be the SEC teams, the Big Ten teams, and then a select few others. If it's 50 or 60 teams, whatever it is, maybe it's a buy-in option, but it's only going to be the biggest brands. And they're going to go operate independently. and they'll collectively bargain with their athletes, and they'll have a cap and all this. We're heading there. It's an inevitability, and it will happen in my lifetime. I don't know if it'll happen tomorrow or next year, or 5 years or 10 years, but it's going to happen in my lifetime. God willing, I live tomorrow. You know what I mean. But the point is, yes, we are headed there, inevitably, because the system as it is currently constructed is, everyone says it's not sustainable, but it's not. It doesn't work anymore. So, like, the way that the NCAA operated forever was under the premise, a flawed premise of amateurism, which we all know is laughable. So if you're actually going to share revenue and pay players and all that sort of stuff, you have to have limits and constructs around there, and you can't do it in the current model governed by the NCAA. So they are going to do this eventually. But it's not just going to be the 16 SEC teams. It's going to be the SEC teams, the Big Ten teams, and others that are relevant enough to add value. Clemson, Miami, Florida State, maybe Arizona State, like those types of programs. We'll see what it all looks like, but that will happen inevitably in my and hopefully all of our lifetime. All right, it's After Further Review. We're brought to you by South Point Volkswagen, southpointvw.com. New and certified pre-owned in Baton Rouge and online at southpointvw.com. Southpointvw.com, Louisiana's largest volume Volkswagen dealer. Told you about a month ago, went by South Point, got my new Volkswagen Atlas Crossport, the 2026. Actually, I just got a message that my license plate is in, so I need to go pick it up over at South Point. But it's never a bad day to pop into South Point Volkswagen. They always got great deals as well. Remember, through the end of this month, they got the 4th of July savings. Even though today's the 27th, they've kept the 4th of July sale going all the way through the month of July. And the end of the month typically is the best time to go buy a new vehicle. So get on by, take advantage of the great deals, like 0.9% for 60 months on 2026 Atlas. It's a brand new Atlas for 0.9% for 5 years, basically free money for 5 years. Go get your new vehicle at South Point Volkswagen. Airline just north of Highland, southpointvw.com. South Point Volkswagen, what's your direction? Do it every day about this time. Let's go around the SEC.
Around the SEC, bringing you the biggest news from the nation's best conference, the Florida Gators.
Florida's hired Greg McMahon as a special team assistant. Most recently was a special teams coordinator at Tulane in 2023 and 2024. Worked with John Summerall in that 2024 season, of course. Held that position at LSU from 2018 to 2021. Was not retained by Brian Kelly. Proved to be one of the big mistakes that Brian Kelly made. McMahon will assist first-year Florida special teams coordinator Jonathan Galante.
The Kentucky Wildcats.
Will Stein has added another quarterback to the roster. Will Drakeford said he's picked Kentucky. He'll be a preferred walk-on. He chose that route over offers from Stony Brook, Towson, Merrimack, other small colleges. 6'2", 195. This sort of betting on the come here for Will Stein. Drakeford makes 7 quarterbacks now on Kentucky's roster under OC and quarterbacks coach Joe Sloan.
The Alabama Crimson Tide.
2028 linebacker Tyseer Young has picked Kalen DeBose and the Alabama Crimson Tide. He'll play his college ball in Bryant-Dennehy Stadium. That is until he leaves after a year because he's not playing. He's a Delaware the top prospect in Delaware, because when you're the Alabama coach, you go get the top prospect out of Delaware because that's where they breed elite-level college football players ready for the SEC. So congrats to Kalen DeBose. They're up to 7 commits for 2028.
The Vanderbilt Commodores.
Kicker Ben Brewer has picked Vandy. He's a 2027 kicker. He's a 5-star, according to Cole's Kicking. The national recruiting services don't give out rankings or ratings to kickers, but so most rely on Cole's Kicking. Brewer's from Tennessee, 6'1", 190. Also had an offer from Colgate. Vandy's got 17 commits for 2027.
The Arkansas Razorbacks.
Laughing at. Need an offer from toothpaste. It's Vandy or toothpaste.
Exactly. I mean, what do you want to do?
I want to go to Vandy.
There you go. That's what
Nashville's
he's
great.
doing. Yeah.
Love going to Nashville.
Great city.
Broadway.
Awesome.
Got an NFL stadium there.
They do.
Hockey team as well.
Brand new NFL stadium
Brand new
there.
NFL stadium coming. I mean, Vandy Stadium is gorgeous. I was there last year. They put condos in the end zone. It looks so great. You want to hit the thing again?
The Arkansas Razorbacks.
They're putting LED and lasers and audio stuff in there in the stadium. Remember they used to call it Reynolds Razorback Stadium? They're not calling it that anymore.
Really?
Hey, we talked about this. Yeah, they sold the naming rights to the stadium.
I think I might have been out. I don't remember that.
Maybe, yeah.
No.
And so then we looked up who Donald W. Reynolds was, but I forgot who he was. But anyway, apparently, like the Reynolds Foundation or something had a deal where it would be named Reynolds Razorback until a certain time, and that's expired. So now they went and sold it. Still kind of sucks. Feel bad for that guy.
Yeah, man.
You're out. It's an old dead guy. What? He is.
I mean, yeah, it's like
Well, now we can go sell it.
like he won't know.
Thanks, old dead guy. Respect, though, to the Reynolds family. All right, there you have it. That is Around the SEC. Monday shows are presented by Relief Windows and ReliefWindows.com. Windows, doors, siding, shutters, and shades. Relief Windows and ReliefWindows.com. Coming out of SEC football media days, Nick Saban was a guest on the McAfee show and talked about Lane Kiffin and year one expectations. We're going to get to that in 15 minutes right after SportsCenter. When we come back, though, there's two stories that sort of dovetail into each other. That is a great way to piggyback what we just talked about with Urban Meyer. One is, have you seen Ward Manuel's exit package at the University of Michigan? We'll dive into that in a second. And also, Stanford players are trying to unionize. I don't want to bore you with this topic, but it is massively significant. If it goes through, we'll tell you why next at AFR.
After further review.
We have a precious handful of Saturdays remaining before our football season is upon us. Now, look, we're all ready for football, but for us, and football Saturdays are work. And so got to enjoy these last few weekends. So Saturday, Sunday, spent the whole weekend out back in the pool with Erica and Drew. Man, we just floated around, lounged around, listened to music, watched some sports on TV. And those are the best days, man. But it's possible because you have that pool in your backyard. If you've ever dreamed of that, having your outdoor oasis, your backyard paradise, I'm telling you, it's possible, it's affordable, and you want to start with Duplessis Pools. DuplessisPools.com, DuplessisPools.com. Their pools start at under $48K. Financing options are available. Think of that. I mean, some you pay more than that for a car. They have financing options available, and they can build any size, style, custom pool you want. But make that dream a reality and start today at DuplessisPools.com.
After further review, presented by Relief Windows. Windows, doors, siding. And oh, we do shutters too.
Wrapping up hour number one. So Ward Manuel from New Orleans, shout out, is the athletic director at Michigan, but not for long. He will resign at the end of the year. So there was a Freedom of Information Act record request to get the documents obtained by the Associated Press here on Monday, which will be basically the exit agreement for Ward Manuel. So we all know what happened with Michigan and Coach Sharon Moore. There was an internal investigation. As part of that internal investigation, Ward Manuel, not a good reflection on him. So they're like, all right, you're out. He doesn't want to leave, but he is. So as part of this agreement, he is going to step down officially on his personnel record. It will reflect a resignation, and part of his exit will be a lump sum payment of $7.14 million. Yo. Also, he will get former athletic director perks. He'll be eligible for tickets to Michigan games. He'll have golf privileges, because of course you will. University will also make a $108,000 contribution to his retirement account. And they'll pay his attorney fees, $82,000. Y'all wonder why players want to be paid? Not this exclusively, but it's stories like this. Like, this is the problem with college football and college athletics. The best, I've said it before, but the best line was Trev Albert, who said, college football, college sports does not have a revenue problem. It has a spending problem. And this is evidence. Adults can be bad at their job, almost, in some senses, literally criminally bad at their job, and get paid gross sums of money not to work, and get golf privileges and have your attorney's fees paid for, and a $108,000 contribution to his retirement account. Ward Manuel at the University of Michigan, who oversaw a scandal there with the head coach, Sharon Moore, because they were covering up, well, what's been alleged. You all know what's been alleged. Like, these are the kinds of stories that drove us to this point in college football. It's not the kids being greedy. It's this. It's the adults who saw an opportunity to build a annual multi-billion-dollar industry on the backs of free labor. And the labor finally said, wait, That guy gets Michigan in a scandal with tries to cover a scandal with the head coach, and y'all are going to give him $7 million to go away? Oh, and golf privileges and tickets and $108,000 to his retirement, and you're going to pay his attorney fees. And we can't put cream cheese on a bagel? Y'all been pointing a finger at the wrong place the whole time. Which is why it's interesting that today also, and maybe it took really smart kids at Stanford, the Stanford players have taken the initial step toward unionization. They've established the first active player-led chapter of the College Football Players Association. This is not formally unionizing, and it's worth noting the courts have regularly rejected any opportunity for student-athletes to unionize. And you may push against you. Look, unions at one point in our country had their day. This isn't a union conversation. All that to say, in professional sports, they're player unions, and that's how you have collectively bargained agreements. And we may be headed there. I think we eventually will be headed there in college sports one day, whenever college football and basketball would break away and just operate independently as their own thing. Football for sure. But Stanford, their players joining this push for collective bargaining. Maybe it takes really smart guys at Stanford to get this thing done. But then again, Northwestern tried, and they got rejected. So something worth following. All right, it's after further review. From the ancillary to the on-field stuff. Nick Saban was a guest on the Pat McAfee show, and coming off the heels of SEC football media days, the GOAT talked to McAfee about his protege, Lane Kiffin, and the year one expectations. You're going to hear that when we come back to kick off hour number 2 right after SportsCenter. Remember, you can email us, tweet us, or text us in the 225-396-4400, 396-4400, 396-4400. Bill Bender in 20 minutes to talk some Big Ten media days. We got a ton to do, and glad you're here. It's AFR.
After further review.
Love telling you about our friends over at Parish Restoration. When it rains almost every day, like it does here in the summer, and you have the combination of heat, humidity, and water, that's a breeding ground for mold. If you have mold or think you might, Parish Restoration is the answer. ParishRestoration.com, ParishRestoration.com, ParishRestoration.com. It's mold remediation done right the first time. It's an easy process. Jim Woodworth and his gang, they're awesome. They'll come, they'll spray their patented non-toxic dry fog. Again, it's a dry fog, so you don't have to worry about cutting sheetrock or pulling up carpet or damaging your furniture. It's a dry fog. It's non-toxic, so it's not going to harm your family, your pets, your plants, and it's patented. Nobody else can do it. So you want the best? You want Parish Restoration. It's affordable, and it's efficient. They can fog your house in half a day. ParishRestoration.com. Check them out online, ParishRestoration.com.